there may be drinking water inlets. So they are fully engaged in that process and will continue to be. And once we know more, especially the results of the sampling, we'll be able to report more.
One of the specific questions that we've received as a municipality is whether or not there was any risk to our drinking water systems. There is no risk to our drinking water systems. The spill happened downward from our intake. We have one intake in the Great Lakes, and we have obviously a number of wells, and those wells would not be impacted by this. And the spill was occurring downstream from where our intake is. So I assure the community at large that we are committed to this and paying attention to it. The municipality will do whatever it can to, productively and constructively be a solution here. And obviously there are further activities that will have to take place between the company and the Ministry of the Environment that don't involve the city, and we'll pay attention to those, but play whatever appropriate role we can when we can. Madam Clerk.
Under agenda item 4, declarations of pecuniary interest, I have Councillor Dufour has declared a conflict with respect to item 7.6, Tourism Development Fund applications, as his partner is employed by one of the applicants. Councillor Nero has declared a conflict with respect to item 7.6, Tourism Development Fund applications, as he is a committee member of the Queen Street Cruise. Councillor Nero has declared a conflict with respect to item 7.9, Community Development Fund Green Initiatives Program applications, as his daughter is employed by the YMCA. Councillor Hilsinger has declared a conflict with respect to item 7.8, Arts and Culture Assistant Grants Late Intake 2022, as she is employed by the Algoma Arts Festival Association. And Councillor Shoemaker has declared a conflict with respect to item 8.6.1, granting access to neighboring property River Road on consent, and the associated bylaw 2022-124, as one of the property owners is a client of his law firm.
Anything else, Council? Not that I felt like we missed any there. That was quite a few. Okay.
Under agenda item 5, a motion by Councillors Hollingsworth and Scott resolve that the agenda for June 13th, 2022 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Under agenda item 6.1, 2021 Medal of Merit Award presentation.
So this is a very exciting part of our meeting. I want to welcome Barbara to the council chambers with all of her family and friends who are here with her. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to recognize an outstanding citizen, Barbara Nolan, with the City of Sault Ste. Marie's Medal of Merit for 2021. Sault Ste. Marie is extremely proud of our citizens who individually or as members of a group continue to excel in various capacities, bringing great pride to our community in a way that should be celebrated. In 1969, the City of Sault Ste. Marie City Council established the Medal of Merit Award to annually honor such excellence and achievement. The citation was approved, which read, "The mayor and members of City Council have long recognized the need to pay tribute to those special individuals or groups who achieve top honors in athletic, cultural, or academic fields, or who make outstanding contributions to our community." Presentation of the Medal of Merit Award, which includes the medal, pin, and citation, represents Sault Ste. Marie's highest honor. The medal has the city coat of arms embossed on its face. The colors of the ribbon and the pin, gold, blue, and gray, are intended to reflect the image of Sault Ste. Marie as a flourishing and prosperous city. The blue represents the water or seaway, and the gray band represents industry, steel in particular. The significance attached to this medal is indicative of an exceptional achievement or an exceptional contribution. Each year, Medal of Merit recipients are chosen by the Medal of Merit Committee, comprised of the mayor acting as the chair and individuals representing a cross-section of our community. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the members of the 2021 committee, Dion Elgie, Sheila Purvis, Jack Ostrowski, and His Honor Justice Romuald Kwolek. I see His Honor is here with us this afternoon, and I thank him for his attendance. Medal of Merit Award recipients are selected from all walks of life. The list of past honorees includes scientists, athletes, academics, and community builders, people who have contributed to the betterment of our community. Today, Barbara Nolan officially joins this impressive group. An Indigenous role model and advocate, Barbara's work and commitment to the advancement of the Anishinaabe language, revitalization efforts, Indigenous education, and excellence in lifelong learning has had a significant impact on our community. As a residential school survivor, Barbara has dedicated her time to working with numerous Indigenous organizations and communities in the development and promotion of language revitalization and retention initiatives. Barbara has made it her life mission to preserve the Anishinaabe language and has been teaching the language locally since the early 1970s. Barbara has held the positions of school counselor and elder in residence cultural advisor at Sioux College for the past 8 years. She works with students in meaningful ways to strengthen cultural knowledge and language acquisition through intergenerational sharing and participation. Barbara was also instrumental in establishing and delivering Anishinaabe immersion at the Garden River Child Care Center. She felt that everything the center does should be for children, and that its work is to leave the children with a sense of who they are and where they come from. As the children spend time with Barbara, she shares stories with them, helping them to learn and retain their language. Recently, Barbara was appointed the Anishinaabe Nation Anishinaabe Commissioner. In this role, she advises the Anishinaabe Nation leadership and the public on the importance of protection, revitalization, and retention of their Indigenous language. She wrote the first Native as a second language curriculum in Canada. Is the first president and founding member of the Ontario Native Education Counseling Association, and also the first president and founding member of the Sault Ste. Marie Indigenous Friendship Center. The Medal of Merit is a fitting recognition of Barbara's tremendous leadership and significant contribution to our community. She has inspired hundreds of Indigenous people to regain their language and celebrate their traditions, and she has shared her language with and taught many non-Indigenous people. We need to collectively learn about and understand Indigenous history and culture so that we can learn from it, celebrate it, and respect it. Barbara is helping us make significant progress as a community in this regard, and we are grateful for her continued efforts. I would like to now welcome Barbara to say a few words.
I'll get my notes. Abojone no magnedok. Apchukuk chapiten dagot manda gymnachi eknungo. Greetings, all my relations, my real relations. It's a great honor, and I'm very humbled to be the recipient of this Merit Award. Is that what it's called? Merit Award. I had heard about it, and I know some individuals that have received it in the past. And but it's just honoring to be recognized for all the work that I've done over the years and I'll continue to do. Yesterday, I was on the canoes with MacGuffins, sailed right by here. We went right by here. And I wanted to tell you that a group of women from the American side were meeting yesterday morning and doing a water ceremony for our water safety. Also, another group of women on this side were also meeting and doing ceremony so that our waters are safe. So I just wanted to bring that message. I don't know what else to say, but I just thank you. Thank to my nominator, Karen. And thank my family for coming. My sister Rosella traveled from Manitoulin Island, and her husband, Jim, and my son, Tom, my grandson, Chad. Stand up, Chad. Show him how tall you are. My daughter, Colleen. My daughter, Colleen, she's the oldest, and Tom's the youngest, and there's 3 in between. And Carolyn, my niece, Karen, and my 2 nieces over there. I consider them my nieces, Mabel and Tekla Turkle. When I received the call on, I think it was December 27th or 28th, my daughter and I were shopping, and that's when they kind of lifted the COVID and you could go shopping a little bit. So we were up at the Winners, I think, and my phone was ringing away in my purse, and I thought, who's calling me? So I looked at it, and it says, Carmen Provenzano. Did I have some tickets that I didn't pay? I really didn't know what it was about, so I answered it, and it kept cutting out, in the stores, you can't get the service very good. So it kept coming out, and so he congratulated me that I was being awarded with this prestigious award. And I got all shaky and, oh my God, what am I going to do? What do I have to do? But I look back at my years of service. I started out with the separate school board as a counselor many years ago in 72, I believe, and I worked with a Tay Legacy. And she was my mentor. And I tell you, some of the things we got into, we had to travel up to Batchewana Bay to go and visit the families that sent their kids to the separate school system. It was St. James School back then. And but I have to tell you this because it's really funny. So Tay, we go knock on the doors and people come and we talk about the kids and then we leave. Well, this one house, you could hear the music and it was fiddle music. And Tay, you don't mind me telling that she's gone on to the Happy Hunting Ground years ago. But anyway, there's fiddle music. Well, let's just go in, she says. Well, knock on the door. I said, okay, I'm right behind her. So she knocks on the door. Sure enough, they're having a big party. And it's like a Friday morning, like they must have continued from the night before, and they're fiddling and dancing away. And then they come in, one of them come and grab Tay, and then Tay was dancing around, and then another man grabbed me and I was dancing around. And then they said, well, sit down and have a few. I said, oh, we can't, we're on work time, So we said, well, come back next week. We went there once a month. So that's what the saying goes. Do as they do, right? But we got out of there and traveled back home and had a big laugh about it. So I remember the people of Batchewana Bay with their parties. I have taught the language, and I think when I retired from Sault College in 2003, it was pulling me, language, do language work, okay? And and the college was downsizing at the time, and they were trying to get rid of all the 55-year-olds and over, plus the number of years you've been there, you qualify for a pension or, the buyout. So I discussed it with my husband and I said, look, the buyout will pay all the bills. And then I can go work for language, with language, and in the bottom of my heart, those of you who have a second language, keep that language up. It is, that's who you are. For myself and my sister, we went to Spanish residential school and they tried to strap the language right out of us, our language, but we survived. So today we're bilingual, and every chance I get, I taught for Yale University online, and they have some Indigenous students there, but there was a couple that were non-Indigenous. And I also taught Mexican students, the ones that are up at Sault College right now visiting. And so I taught them online, and they grasp it really, really good. And it's Anishinaabe Moel.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but I practiced that dozens of times last night. And whenever I find whenever I practice something, I screw it up. Yeah.
And I've worked with the city with their translations. I see one up ahead over there. So, and who was that saw me yesterday morning? Put your hand up. Yeah, over there. So I have some work for him. I mean, he has work for me. So I'll be answering your email. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart Mandagi min iwen nam miek mandawi debnama ni e chim na chiko. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for honoring me with this award. Miigwech.
Barbara, if I could just have your attention, we have to give you the award. So I need you to walk that way. Just come right around here and meet me right out front here. So keep walking that way around and meet me right out front. That brings us to, so I will be, just so council's aware, I will be joining Barbara's group for a little bit. They're going to be in the Hamilton room beside us having a dinner. And so I will be away from the meeting for a short while. So that brings us to 6.2. And that's the Queen Street Cruise. I believe we have a delegation here. There we go, the Trumbinskis.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome to be here. It's nice to see you. This is your
Thank
first
you.
time. We've seen your
This
father a
is-
number of
this-
times,
this
but
is
this
Gary
is your
Senior.
first time.
Yeah. So yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council, thank you very much for having us here. My name is Gary Trumbinski Jr. This is my father, Gary Trumbinski Senior. And we just wanted to bring the attention of council that the Queen Street Cruise is happening this weekend. After a 2-year hiatus, we are back. We are downtown and we're excited to be back. Right now, we have almost 150 vehicles registered for this event. That eclipses every past pre-registration for the cruise by nearly double. Okay, that's very, very exciting for us. I'd also like to give my thanks to Councillor Nero and Virginia McLeod for helping us plan this event and everything that they've done for us along with tourism. So Friday night, we have the event happening. The cruise is happening. It starts at 6 o'clock. Everybody's welcome to come downtown and enjoy the festivities. We'll have the beer garden and the band's playing live, etc. And Saturday is the car show. We've had a lot of local support, and I think we've raked in more sponsorship dollars this year than any other year prior, and partly in thanks to Tourism Sault Ste. Marie. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
May the force be with you, Gary. My thanks to Rick Nero as well for being on the committee. And I just wanted to, mention that we're 5 years in the making. We haven't given up. We're very resilient. We keep coming back. We're going to make this work one way or the other. Of course, anytime you have an outdoor show, it depends on the weather. So far this week, it's clear and sunny. So let's hope for that. I think Tourism Sault Ste. Marie needs a pat on the back and a thank you. Larry Girardi at the Work Center, he deserves a big thank you. Virginia McLeod and Alicia Moore and all the people we worked with, City Hall, Carmen.
That's
your
okay.
uncle, Christian Provenzano.
It's actually my middle name, so it's not.
Oh, there you go.
entirely
So
accurate.
your office has been instrumental in with helping us over the 5 years, and we truly appreciate everything that you you do, and we're thankful that you believe in our commitment. And believe me, we're committed to making this work. And we want to thank you all very much.
Thank you. Listen, I'll thank you for all of your work and volunteers and contribution to this. And obviously you've brought your son on board here and he's.
I had to. I don't know the computers that well.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously turning into a very successful event. If you've got 150 cars pre-registered, I think it'll be great. We all love to see this activity downtown. So thank you to everybody who made it a contribution to making this happen, up to our own staff, to the volunteers in the community. This is how you get things done, and we appreciate it.
If you want to see a downtown revitalized, come down on Friday night and watch this, because it is truly an amazing spectacle. And there's a few videos that have been made, but they don't do it justice. There is so many happy people making friendships, renewing friendships, not people they haven't seen in 30 years. You know, they're all hugging, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful time. And we invite you all down. Please come down and enjoy it. We'd love to see you there.
Okay, so starting Friday night, what time
6 p.m. Yep.
and where?
GFL Memorial Gardens parking lot.
Yeah, I knew the answer to both those questions, but I wanted to.
Well, that's, thank you. I'm sorry we missed on that.
Yeah, you did say.
It's on the website, www.queenstreetcruise.com. Thanks to Gary.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
6 o'clock, Memorial Gardens.
Please be there.
Okay. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Under agenda item 6.3, Marconi Cultural Event Center, Marconi Meets World, and Ashlyn McMillan and Karina Ferrer in attendance.
Welcome to council, Ms. McMillan and Ms. Ferrer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Ashlyn McMillan. I am the asset developer for the Marconi Cultural Event Center.
Buenas tardes, soy Karina Ferrer from the Marconi Culture Event Center, project manager.
So I'm here to talk about Marconi Meets World today. Marconi Meets World is going to be a 3-day festival taking place at the Marconi Cultural Event Center, which will be July 21st to the 23rd. We invite you to join us for these cultural celebrations, which include Indigenous, Italian, and a variety of other cultures. We have live entertainment, amazing food from all over the world, numerous of local vendors in our global vendor village sponsored by Legendre Financial. We are also going to have a kids zone, which is titled Kids in the Neighborhood, which includes inflatables, a water zone, crafting, and face painting. And that is in partnership with Winmar. Passes for this festival are $25 per day. Or we have a 3-day pass festival or festival pass for $100, which includes a swag bag. We're really excited to announce that our main stage is filled with amazing entertainment, which is sponsored by Tenaris. The lineup includes incredible Canadian talent. The headliners of this is Juno Award-winning Tom Wilson, as well as Digging Roots, which are as well as Indigenous Music Award winner Mimi Obanawin. We have a lot of local talent as well, such as Brendan Hodgson, Dino Waves, Unorganized Township, Wild Stallions, All the Tired Horses in St. Marie. And of course, on the Saturday, we're going to have our traditional Marconi Italian Festival, and we'll have great music from party band Killer Hooks, Carmen, sorry guys.
Carmen Spada.
Carmen Spada, Frankly Speaking, and they are going to be playing all the Italian classics. This 3-day festival is going to be taking place at the Marconi Club, which is located at 450 Albert Street West. Again, the date is July 21st to the 23rd. And it's in collaboration with Missionabee Cree First Nation, the Electra Marconi Society, and the G Marconi Society.
Sorry, I'm short. The Marconi Culture Event Center is proud to introduce this diverse celebration to the Jamestown area. With the expansion of this diverse culture, we're just ecstatic to welcome all the community, and we hope to see everybody there.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Before I take any questions or comments from council, if you have any, I do want to recognize the work that you're doing there. I think it's great that you're having kind of a multicultural event. It's great space for it, and that's certainly something I'm happy to see happen. So happy to support this when it comes up later on in our agenda. Councilors, does anybody have anything? Nothing? Thank you for your time, both.
Thank you.
Gracias.
That brings us to consent. Oh, sorry, I apologize. We're not going to consent yet. Before we get to consent, I wanted to take a moment. We usually would do this at the beginning of the meeting, but Malcolm had that thing in front of him, so I bumped it down the agenda. I want to recognize Don McConnell and give Malcolm, as a CEO, a few moments to say a few things about Don, because Don is at his last council meeting. Don has worked for our municipal corporation for 44 years, and it's been quite a career. So Don, I'm not going to steal any of Malcolm's thunder here or take his time. Earlier today, I joked with Don, thought this was quite funny, that he was the best director of planning I'd ever worked with, because he's the only director of planning that I've ever worked with. But I say that very sincerely, Don. You're a gentleman. I enjoyed the 7.5 years that we worked together. And I thank you for all of your hard work on behalf of your community and with all of the mayors and councilors you worked with, and all the work you did contributing to our community over the last 44 years. So thank you very much for me and Council Don. Mr. CEO.
I'm very pleased to recognize Don and at his last meeting. Don, as the mayor stated, joined us 44 years ago in 1978 permanently. He'd been a summer student prior to that. I hate to guess how many members of council and how many mayors you've worked with over that span of time, Don. 1984, he is promoted to senior planner, and in 1998, director of planning. I'm not sure back in 1978 how planning applications came in, Don. I think maybe papyrus. And, certainly not emails and computers or anything that we're used to today. Don will be taking a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge with him when he leaves, and we're certainly going to miss it. I tried to think of one thing I could sum up Don's approach in, and I think really, when you work in planning, you have many regulations, a lot of legislation, a lot of wishes that you're trying to find a happy medium for. And that certainly personified Don's approach. He always tried to find a path forward that would satisfy as many people as possible and still get things done. And we really appreciate that, Don. We'll give you a chance to say a few words now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Malcolm, for those kind words. I will be brief, and to some extent, I'm going to echo the words of my colleague, Don Elliott, who was wished he was sitting here two months ago. I do realize how very fortunate I've been to be able to come back to your hometown and work at a job that you love as much as I love this job for as long as I did is a real rarity. And I won't go into specific examples, but I have such great memories of all of the interesting projects I've worked on and all of the interesting people that I've met and worked with over the years in both the public and private sector. And I do want to congratulate and thank council. I speak with colleagues in a number of other municipalities on a regular basis, and not everybody enjoys the really good working relationships that this mayor and this council and senior staff here have. And I think that's a real tribute to everybody, mostly though to council. It's a little more difficult for you guys to do that. I think it's been great. I must say, I'm very much looking forward to retirement and moving on. But the Sioux is a very small town, and I do anticipate that I will be seeing you all from time to time. Thanks very much.
I don't know how many counselors Don's worked with, but I was there when he told Councilor Christian that he was his 38th favorite. For the record. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Don. That will bring us to the consent agenda. Matters on consent, council. Before I take some, actually, I just remembered I should take Councilor Hilsinger, you said you were conflicted on 7-8. We should deal with 7-8 in case I have to leave for the dinner because Councillor Hilsinger is the acting mayor this month. So can we start with 7-8? Does anybody have anything on 7-8? Okay, you don't have to go anywhere, Councillor Hilsinger. No one's talking about that one. Okay, any matters on consent? Councillor Veselwellen. And then Councillor Bernie.
Thank you so much. Through you, Mr. Mayor, 7.2 to Mr. Cochamilio. Mr. Cochamilio, could you just take us briefly through the process of finding the correct vendor for the NG 911 system and what made the Netigen managed solution company the front runner in this process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council Veselwellen. IT worked closely with police services. They more so took the lead on this because they provide the PSAP service. They reached out to other municipalities and saw what solutions were out on the industry. At this time, the only proven solution was the Netigen solution that was out there that has been installed in a number of municipalities. So therefore, we decided that we would source it out to Netigen for those reasons. And the fact that we are in a close time frame to implement the NG 911 for 2024, we decided to use the Netigen company for those reasons.
So in terms of due diligence, you reached out to the municipalities to get their opinion on the effectiveness and the reliability of the system?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council Veselwellen, that is correct, yes.
Thank you very much. I don't have anything further.
On 7.2, Councillor Bernie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question is regarding the funding for the remaining will come from operating level increase. So if Mr. Cochamilio or if Malcolm would be able to answer, does fire and service pick up this on their annual budget, or will this come from IT department?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. We haven't determined yet exactly how the increase will be applied to. It's probably going to be a combination of fire and police. That being said, the municipality is responsible for having a 911 system, so it is something that truly goes to the levy. We will be looking throughout implementation to see where we may save costs. Obviously, we won't be using the former system anymore, so there may be some operational costs that we're able to net off against the contract. But in the end, we will come to the 2023 budget with our recommendation as to how the costs are allocated.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Ms. Acting Mayor. Mine is 7.12 Capital Road Spending Survey.
Perhaps I misunderstood
Yes.
the mayor's notes that you had a comment on this
No.
same item.
No.
Oh, my apologies.
No
Okay,
problem.
okay, all right. So Councillor Christian.
Thank you. 7.12, I guess we'll direct these to Mr. Ramil. Sir, first of all, I want to thank you for the report. Councillor Hollingsworth and I put forward a resolution earlier in the year. And I know we had a conversation with then Don Elliott about some of the statistics we were interested in getting. So I appreciate the report. A couple questions though, based on what's in the report. When the survey was done, was it done? What was the method of the survey? Was it a conversation? A sheet with standard questions? How was the survey conducted?
Councillor Christian, we're just getting your microphone on there.
Do you want me to repeat everything?
I'm sure that'll be a stretch for you.
So thank you for the report. My question is, was the survey, how was the survey rather conducted? Was it phone or was it a standard survey that was mailed out, et cetera? How was it conducted?
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Christian, as you say, my predecessor, Don Elliott, initiated the survey, and he did it through emailing our counterparts, former directors of the other three municipalities in the north, Timmins, Sudbury, and North Bay. And he set out the metrics that we were looking for and pulled them through email.
Okay, so, in the report, we often see this where it's difficult to compare one municipality to another. And one of the issues that was highlighted is that the cost of shipping raw materials to make asphalt. Do you have any indication as to how many suppliers there might be in terms of supplying the raw materials for asphalt? I'm trying to get an idea, try to frame this somehow, figure out if there's a competitive environment for suppliers or whether there's just a few that supply this type of material.
Through Miss Acting Mayor to Councillor Christian, the asphalt that I'm referring to in the report is the liquid asphalt that comes from, it's tied to the oil and gas industry. So that part of the metric is that, most of it will come from a common source. Warehouses went out in Southern Ontario. So it's not the production of the asphalt pavement, it's the liquid asphalt, which is largely tied to the oil and gas industry.
Okay. Again, in the report, it says that one of the reasons that our cost per kilometer might be high is that we do more reconstruction rather than resurfacing. When I was on the PUC board, they talked about the age of the existing road infrastructure, and that some roads, some services underground were upwards of 100 years old. Is that the reason why we may be doing more reconstruction rather than just simple resurfacing that we're so backlogged when it comes to repairing and remediating the issues that exist for decades upon decades?
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Christian, one of the factors that drives our roads to the top of the list for reconstruction is the condition of the underground infrastructure, in particular the sanitary sewer in these 100-year-old roads is old clay tile sewer. So that is, if that is a factor for us, which maybe we're an older city than say Timmins, they may pay less on the reconstruction or focus more on resurfacing or a partial reconstruction. Like a partial reconstruction would be a replacement of granite material and asphalt and curb and sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question, a two-parter. Do we know, do we have an idea of what the road deficits are in the other communities and any plans that they have to address these deficits? Was there any conversation about that? Do we have any indication of how far behind they are? We know how far we are, but what about those other communities?
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Christian, I wasn't involved in those conversations. I know Don Elliott did meet with this group on a yearly or twice yearly basis, but we're all in the same boat in that we're all putting together our asset management plans, which will deal with each individual road deficit and how we're going to finance that over the years, which is coming to an end this year. The asset management plan will be in place.
Okay, and I expected as much. I mean, it's difficult to gather this type of information. I just want to make a quick comment, and I really would encourage council going forward and staff to look at ongoing dialogue with these communities. This is a huge infrastructure cost to the city. It's a real struggle given our environment. I think anything we can do to improve communication and discover best practices and continue that dialogue with other communities in the north. We're all struggling with this. I really think it's worth the time spent just keeping that channel of communication open so that we're doing the best we can to address the challenges we face when it comes to the conditions of our roads. So thank you very much. That's it for me.
Thank you. Counselor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, acting Madam Mayor. To you, Carl. First of all, very good information. I think this is an excellent first step for us to learn more about our road system. And all of us around this table, all of us in this room have a very strong concern about our roads. I think that's fair to say, correct? My first question, since this is such good information, what have you learned? Can you touch on basically two new learnings when you've done this survey that could help you move forward? And I understand that we're going to be doing the asset plan, and I'm sure that your learnings will be applied to that, as you just alluded to. But can you please tell us two key learnings that you're going to remember as you move forward and creating better roads for us?
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth. I was a bit surprised to see where we fit in with dollars per lane kilometer. And that we are at or right at the top of the 5 municipalities that we surveyed. So, I mean, I guess we're on par. So that was a learning opportunity for me. Just that I mean, in formulating the body of the analysis, and I mean, it really does. You really do need to take a deeper dive to make meaning of all this. With every municipality, we're geographically so far apart. We have to look at, like Sault Ste. Marie, maybe we spend the most money because, I mean, our subsoil conditions aren't great for a cold weather climate like we have. Like we have sensitive clays, frost moves up and down. It accelerates road deterioration. So, and just we need to be mindful of that. Is the fact that we're spending the most mean we're doing the best? Maybe we're doing what we have to because we have a bit worse situation.
Okay, that's fair. Two other questions. Now that you have this information, now you have this knowledge and potentially working with your counterparts throughout Northern Ontario, is there an opportunity to start talking to other colleagues in the northern states, such as Milwaukee, Iowa, other areas that may have similar soil to us, to learn their best practices? Will there be an opportunity for you to do some more research?
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, we don't generally reach out to American municipalities. We have not. I mean, it's something we could look at if council wanted us to find somebody, a place with similar soil conditions, as you say.
Okay. So if I may say, as we move forward with the new asset plan, these learnings will be adopted hopefully into it. And having said that, there may be potential to do further best practice research. Is that fair to say?
Through Ms. Acting Mayor, sure. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And last point is, as my colleague, Councillor Christian has said, the PUC has basically deterring pipes and so forth, but they also have a model that they have created to basically figure out how much money they're going to allocate each year towards their aging infrastructure. I encourage you to contact PUC if you haven't already to learn about their model and maybe come back to council and give us a better idea how much money we should allocate each budget. Granted, knowing that we will never be able to satisfy the whole road system, but further understanding what you need is important for us.
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, we'll be back to council to completely present the asset management plan of all linear municipal linear assets, including the roads, which is similar to the asset management exercise the PUC would have done.
Okay, that's really good to hear. So again, I know everyone around this table in this room is very concerned about the roads. So thank you, Carl. That's all on this topic.
Thanks. Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Ms. Acting Mayor. I just wanted to thank Carl and Don as well for the report. I definitely found it very informative. I it's really interesting to see that we are at the top of our comparative municipal spends. Like Councillor Hollingsworth, I think this is a really good starting point of information to start drawing some conclusions from, but I had a few further questions. Given that we are on the top end of the spend, if indeed our roads still have a significant infrastructure deficit, it would logically follow that either we're trying to catch up from years of underinvestment or our roads are aging quicker or both. And so as we try to understand what the truth of that answer is, one of the questions I had for staff is, we have a higher service level standard for our snow plowing and snow grading operations here in Sault Ste. Marie than most of these other municipalities. And is it possible that that frequency of plowing and grading also plays a role in the potentially quicker deterioration of our services?
Mr. Girardi?
Keep in mind, I know we hear this all the time that we have this, premium snow clearing, but quite frankly, we get the most snow. We have to follow the minimum maintenance standards, and following the minimum maintenance standards does put us out and more active and on the roads far more than other communities. And quite frankly, you're right. That's what helps deteriorate our roads. So I think there are many factors that help deteriorate it, but the conditions, as Carl was mentioning, the clay material that we're working with, the cold temperatures that we have, especially this past year. This past year was exceptional for the amount of frost that was in the ground. I think that's what's given us more activity on the roadways, more so than saying we have this, really good. I'm glad people are happy with our snow removal program. That's the intent. But quite frankly, we follow the minimum maintenance standards and we have to be out there.
Thanks, Mr. Girardi. I certainly don't intend to mean that we shouldn't be plowing the roads because it might deteriorate the surface, but I think it's important to see the whole picture to understand the ecosystem of how we've arrived at where we are. And so I'm just looking for more information on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the question to Carl. Carl, I was just looking at the numbers here with the average annual expenditure for capital reconstruction. We're at 16.7 million, and our average annual expenditure for resurfacing, we're at 3.5 million. And I compare to Thunder Bay, which has less square kilometer than probably almost less than half. They're spending more money on the resurfacing. So I guess my question is, what would the magic number be, or what would you like to see if we have 16.7 and 3.5, which comes out to about $20 million? How much money would we need to advance and put more construction? Is there a goal that you're looking at, or the CAO is?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councilor Bruni, I'll assist Carl on this one. The asset management study that we're doing now for linear infrastructure, which includes roads and the services underneath, is going to give us far more granular information than what you see in this report. And the good thing about it is the other municipalities are doing the same thing because we're all trying to meet the same statutory deadline. Once we get that information, we're going to be much better positioned to tell you answers to that. And we do expect to give you guidance on that and recommendations for next year's budget as to what the overall direction we should be going as far as the mix of reconstruction or resurfacing and what the levels should be. We'll have that information for you for the 2023 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on 7.12? Councillor Christian, do you have anything further? Thank you. Anyone else with items on consent? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Item 7.6, Tourism Development Fund. Through you, Acting Madam Mayor, I believe this would probably go Is Travis with us today?
I believe that Mr. Ingram is here in Travis's place.
Even better. My first question is, can you just refresh our memory? Your report outlined at a very high level the requirements. But my main question is, to apply for this funding, do you have to be in Sault Ste. Marie? I noticed that there was a conference that did receive some funding, so I'm assuming that you don't really have to be rooted in Sault Ste. Marie. And having said that, can you just give us a high level of what the requirements are? And the reason I'm asking this is because there's so many people watching tonight, and this is an education format as well.
Absolutely. Through you, Acting Madam Mayor, to Councillor. No, you don't have to be a resident of Sault Ste. Marie. The reason behind the Tourism Development Fund is to be a catalyst for competition to other municipalities. With COVID decimating some of the opportunities, well, not some of, all of the opportunities for tourism, multiple municipalities now are working towards bringing back and attracting those conferences, events, sporting events, things along those lines to their communities. So we use it as an incentivizer to get some of these conferences who might not move to municipalities so far up north. So to be more of a competitive advantage to those other facilities in larger urban areas.
Okay, great, thank you. And my other question, can you refresh our memories how much is in the fund? And my second question, is it going to be the same amount each year, or will we have, as council, an opportunity to increase that amount?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, I don't have the exact dollar amount of the fund in my head, but I can tell you that the fund is derived from the collection of our municipal accommodation tax, which comes through our major hoteliers. We offer the funds as an incentivization to attract those conferences who are incurring additional expenses. So year over year, finance looks at that fund collected and discusses with our director, with Travis, to figure out what the right number is, and with our Tourism Board of Directors.
Okay, and one final question. These groups that have or will be receiving this fund is excellent. Is it a one-time or is it, can you apply more than, can another group apply throughout the year, or is it just given out once a year?
There are two streams. There's our product development stream, which is for, you know, new and enhanced products. The other stream, the Tourism Development Fund, specifically for events. We don't encourage seeing year over year reapplication. However, if they brought forward an application that was significant to increasing overnight stays or a piece of development that would enhance the event, such as contracting a celebrity to maybe be an NC of the event, something that would generate more activation, they could potentially apply to the fund again. However, it would be conditional on how the board sees that as an incentive to more attraction of overnight stays. Apologies through you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And if I could just make one comment again, I think this is a wonderful way to attract tourism, and I support this, but I'm using this opportunity to further educate those that are listening to council tonight. And I hope that in the future, we may also receive a report on saying, because of this fund, we have increased our local GDP, our local economy by X percentage. And I think just showing results will help to support this further.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on 7.6? All right, Councillor Hollingsworth, do you have any other matters on consent?
I just have a comment on item 7, the nine community development fund?
Yes.
Just a comment. If I may say, this is wonderful, especially getting the students involved to be part of the painting and part of the creativity to help create some awareness that if you unfortunately put something down our drains and so forth, our sewers, and how it goes back into our environment. So again, it's positive to engage our students. It's positive to engage our community. And I know in the past we've had 1 or 2 sewers with painted fish and so forth. And I know in years before, Susan Myers, former councillor Susan Myers, was very much supporting this, and I'm glad to see it's on our agenda and that we're moving forward with it. Unfortunately, we had that spill, as we just talked about earlier, and just education is so important. So keep up the good work on this, and I look forward to seeing the outcome from our students' creativity. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else on 7.9? I would just add that I think it's very exciting to see the work of this committee and the work that Emily Cormier is leading. And we're making some things happen, and that's really important. Things are changing. We're much more environmentally conscious and acting on the things that we have to do. And these are just a small example because we have the funding from the Green Initiatives Fund, and we're always looking for more folks to apply for great projects. So thank you. Anything further, Councillor Hollingsworth?
No, I'm
All
fine.
right.
Thank you.
Anyone else with matters on consent? Councillor Dufour?
Yeah, just on 7.10, through you, Madam Acting Mayor, I see this construction contract includes the construction of pedestrian crossovers. I was just wondering if staff can tell us which locations are planned for this contract.
To Councillor Dufour, we have one on Carmen's Way at Albert, one at Pine and Pleasant, and one at Gooley Avenue at Rushmere, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Anyone else on 7.10? I would add on that there has been some conversation I've heard from residents and others with regards to the public actually knowing how these pedestrian crossovers work. I know I personally witnessed people, I was over at the Bush Play Museum, and I personally witnessed cars just blowing through and there were numerous people on the side of the road waiting to cross. So could anyone suggest how do we have plans to take that new feature in the community and talk about it more so that pedestrians know their rights and that motorists know their responsibilities?
We have a communication plan with the clerk's department to do another media blitz on that. We did a commercial a couple of years ago. We'll probably run that again shortly.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Dufour, anything further?
That's it.
Any
Thank
other
you.
matters? Anyone else with matters on consent? Councillor Hollingsworth?
I see it's 5:30. I did actually have one more comment, but it's 5:30, the planning. So no planning tonight.
There's no planning applications
Okay.
on that.
So may I comment on 7.13, strategies for managing traffic?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'm glad to see it back on consent so quickly. Once again, I know a number of us are very concerned about speed. So through you, Acting Madam Mayor, to maybe Carl. Looking at some possible solutions, I think this is a good start to have this group put together. I also understand that there has been some research that's been done about changing the streets with regards to not keeping them straight. Will this group be looking at best practices to see what other municipalities have done to reformat streets? If you put a slight curve in the street, it helps to slow down. It's a traffic calming solution. Will this group be looking at best practices?
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, I think as the report says, it will look at any and all traffic calming measures, and certainly a change in alignment like a curve or a chicane in a road is a accepted traffic calming method. So we'll be looking at all those.
Okay. If it's okay with you, I have done some research, and there was a research article done, though it's old, in December 31st, 2008, Traffic Calming 101. With your permission, I'd like to send it to you so that you can share it with the group. And it talks about how streets can be reconfigured.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, anyone else on 7.13? All right, this is on my list, so I have a few questions for Mr. Rumiel. The data collection and data analysis, we've all heard how serious people feel about, and clearly your report reflects that. People are very concerned about speed and getting people to slow down. So obviously working on this efficiently and effectively is going to be important to the safety of the community. The data collection and data analysis, do we currently have data we can use to get started on helping make decisions on progress to take or actions to take?
We do have traffic counts and speed studies at various locations in the city. So we'll review existing data. Yes.
Okay. And is it possible, I'll just leave this with you, but is it possible is there any like quicker action or action we can take right away to get some of these things moving, whether it's around the public education campaign or perhaps some type of enforcement or other things? Is there low-hanging fruit that can help us act on this more quickly? And can we have meetings more often at the beginning as opposed to quarterly, so that the community can see that we're taking this very seriously and trying to affect some change?
So the report says we'll get back to you in the fall. We will. The initial step is gather as much data as we can, meet as a group. There's 4 entities that are going to Public Works and Engineering, clerks and police services. We'll meet, we'll identify some low-hanging fruit, as you say. If there is any, that can be reported back to council as early as the fall.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. All right, Councillor Gardy.
Say one thing on that.
Absolutely.
My apologies. I just think it's vitally important, as Councillor Hilsinger mentioned, that we get the word out as consistently and clearly as we can about speeding in and around the community. I don't know about my fellow colleagues here around the table, but there's nothing I hear more of between, say, March and in October or November, other than speeding. In winter, a few months, it's snow removal, but other than that, it's speeding, even more so than potholes, personally. Some people joke that the potholes slow people down, but I don't know that that's a proper traffic calming measure. So I don't know if it has to be done in concert with some community partners who are able to help with that. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people in the west end of the community, Councillor Scott, I think would echo it, that are really concerned about traffic. And it's not just commercial traffic, which we hear a lot about, but it's traffic moving around in residential areas on non-thoroughfares. Mr. Rumiel and his department in the past have been very helpful in gathering some data that's been helpful, and we appreciate that. But I really think we need to get the word out throughout the summer months, especially. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I had someone call me from Terrence Avenue, I don't know, in the last few days and asking, how do I get speed bumps? How do I get speed bumps on my street? Those things happen all the time. I think Mr. Jardy had something he wanted to share here.
Yes, through you, Acting Mayor. Keep in mind that all the data that we collect and we have collected and all the studies have been done, we share them continuously with police. So now it becomes an enforcement issue, but it's not like we just going to wait till the fall, do a report, as Carl has stated. That is what we're going to do in this task force. I think is going to be a great thing because we're going to have continuous communication with the city police and other partners. But quite frankly, we're already doing it. So we've collected data, we pass it on to the police, and then the enforcement component comes in. So please don't be afraid to share that information that you have. You're hearing things on Terrence, you're hearing things in your area, share it, we'll send it off, and certainly we'll communicate that also with police. So our communication lines are open now. It's just a matter of trying to provide them the proper data, because that's what they request of us, so that they have good sound information for where they're going to set up. And then we will be certainly talking to our clerk's department and having them also do some communication on it.
Right.
Okay?
And
so it has begun.
Yeah, enforcement's one part of it, and unfortunately, but Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Madam Acting Mayor. I just wanted to share a comment. I actually live very close to McNabb and St. George's, which to me is probably the best example I've ever seen of what the city has done to change the environmental design of a road to control speeding. That corner obviously has actually proven deadly in the past, and with the city's prudent intervention and redesign of that corner, it's as safe as it could ever be. And it's safe to the point that, I can actually walk my kids to their school, to their daycare alongside that stretch and not feel threatened. And so I think that, for the rest of the community, for areas that are not having that same experience, I think environmental design is really the way to go. So that would be my guiding comment to that group. And I think we could point to a really successful intervention that the city has already made. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else on 7.13? Okay, seeing none. Anyone else with items on the consent agenda? No. So
I'll read the motion. I see Councillor Christian is not here. Maybe I can ask, okay, Councillor Shoemaker. Oh, and Councillor Bruni, you're already on it, sorry. Okay, motion by Councillor Shoemaker and Bruni, resolve that all the items listed under date June 13th, 2022, agenda item 7, consent agenda be approved as recommended.
all in favor. All right, that is carried. Mr. CAO, what would you like to tell us?
Madam Acting Mayor, members of council will now move to the regular agenda. I would suggest that we go to 8.6.1. For this item, we do have Mr. and Mrs. Drouin in the gallery, so we'd like to deal with the issue. Madam Acting Mayor, you can turn to Mr. King, who will give council a quick synopsis of the issue. And then if council has any questions, you can go ahead. I would note that the other parties to this are not in attendance tonight.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to members of council. The matter before you stems from provision, which is section 132 of the Municipal Act. And this provision enables this council to pass a bylaw to grant a neighbor access to their abutting neighbor's property if required for the purposes of making maintenance and repairs to their house. The Drouins have reached out to the city's legal department last summer, nearing the end of, or the beginning of August 2021, requesting such a bylaw. Through communication with them, they had made attempts to work with their neighbor in gaining that access to essentially put what is siding on the side of their home, which runs along that property boundary with the abutting owner. Again, not in attendance tonight, Mr. Alfano. Should note also, he does have representation and no one from that firm is also in attendance tonight. Following that, they gave us word that they were unable to secure that access as they were hopeful to do, and essentially through most of the winter months, the city's legal department worked with Mr. Alfano's counsel in trying to put together essentially an agreement that would speak to their granting access to the Drouins in order to access the property for that repair. And it came essentially to light on May 9th of 2022 this year that wasn't going to be achieved. So we weren't able to put an agreement in place. So before you tonight on the agenda is a bylaw which speaks to the Drouins being able to gain access to Mr. Alfano's property essentially for those purposes. So they would look at putting siding on their home. Should be noted that the home has been opened on that side since the onset of this essentially for about a year now. So somewhat important to get this bylaw put in place for them to get that siding on and protect that home from the elements. We'll note that we did have written submissions essentially received from the firm representing Mr. Alfano today, and through some last minute discussions with the Drouins, we'd look to making some just brief changes to that bylaw. So what we were looking at was a 4-week window of time in the bylaw to allow the Drouins contractor to attend the property to do the work. It seems to be agreed upon that a 2-week period of time would be ample for them to do that work as opposed to the proposed 4 weeks. And this comes into play with the submission that was given by Mr. Alfano's representation that they were looking to have this done in simply 1 week time. So kind of a meeting in the middle there in terms of time allotment to get the work done. Should note that the nature of the work here being conducted doesn't involve excavation or anything that is too invasive to Mr. Alfano's property. So when they're putting that siding on the house, at most, there'll be individuals walking back and forth on that permitted area, in addition to some scaffolding that would be placed along the property. So before council tonight and being recommended for passing is that bylaw, again, in taking into account reducing that time frame. And certainly Mr. Alfano and his council not being in attendance tonight will make sure to provide them any comments in terms of that bylaw being passed or not. So those are our kind of brief comments, subject to any questions, obviously.
Anyone with questions for Mr. King? Mr. Nero, Councillor Nero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. King, would there be anything in place in case there's a delay in the replacement of the siding that the Bruins would not have to come back to council to request an extension?
So through you, Madam Actor, Mayor, to Councillor Nero, that's why we're anticipating that. We did look initially at that 4-week period of time, but through discussion, that 2-week period of time should allow this to occur. The contractor is presently lined up to do the work, subject to the passing of this bylaw. They're looking at a couple days worth of work to do so. Certainly rain, any type of delay of that nature is why we look for that longer period of time. So the product, to my understanding, is on hand, which is a big one, especially since the onset of the pandemic in terms of getting those materials. So that's why we're suggesting 2 weeks to get that done. That kind of is the contingency window there so that it doesn't have to return to council.
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Dufour.
Yeah, I just had a question for Ms. Fields, I believe. So through you, sorry, Madam Acting Mayor. Are there any other municipalities that have any cost recovery mechanism or situations that do have to make their way all the way up to council for a bylaw like this?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, I don't have that answer about what other municipalities have in place, but I can spend some time looking at that.
It's okay if you don't have the question right now. It seems like a pretty rare occurrence, but I was curious if there was an incentive to ensure that both parties properly engage in the mediation beyond actually getting this to our table. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. King or anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. So now we are moving on to.
Yeah. Just so Mr. and Mrs. Drew are aware, the bylaw will be voted on and passed when the bylaws are done at the end of the meeting. So.
It's been accepted as a conflict as well. If we want
Okay.
to. Yeah, we
So
could.
we can have the vote on the bylaw right now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So do you have to read something?
Yes, so I'll read the motion, and I have resolved that bylaw 2020, or motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Scott, resolved that bylaw 2022-124 being a bylaw to provide access for the maintenance of a single-family dwelling located at 323 River Road be passed in open council this 13th day of June 2022. I will open that to vote. Yeah, I'm just have to change it here.
Deputy City Clerk, didn't come up on my.
Yeah, it just 1 second. You just have, okay. It should, is anyone seeing it now? It should be up.
Can we just call the vote?
We could, yeah, sure.
I don't know what we're voting on, but all in favor?
Okay.
Unanimously approved. Oh, that, yeah, I know what that is now. Yeah. Yeah.
My apologies, we're having a little technical
problem.
difficulty with the scribe. All right, so we'll move back to mill. And under agenda item 8.3.1 Mill Market Relocation Update, I have a motion by councilors Christian and Gardy, resolved that the report of the Deputy CAO Community Development and Enterprise Services dated June 13th, 2022 be received, and City Council authorize staff to issue a tender for the renovations and leasehold improvements of 73 Brock Street to host Mill Market Sault Ste. Marie. Further, that council approved an expenditure of up to $1,400,000 from the sources outlined above to fund a city contribution to the project. Further, that council approve an advance of up to $410,000 interest-free from internal funds to cover leasehold improvements to the mill market, which the mill market will pay back over a 25-year period with annual contributions of $16,400. Further, that council directs staff to develop a lease agreement with Mill Market Sault Ste. Marie for the 73 Brock Street facility, including a collaboration on the mobile retail units to be brought back to council for approval.
Okay, so questions from councilors. So I had Councilor Shoemaker's hand went up first. We'll start with him, then Councilor Vezoul, and then Councilor Bruni.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, well, no, not through you, but to you, with respect to the denial of funding by the federal government, is there any opportunity to work with our federal representative to see if there's a possibility of securing funding, even if not from this envelope, from any other available funding sources?
There is. I can, maybe this would be helpful to council to, obviously, when we received this information, I spoke to our member of parliament about it. My understanding that is that the application might have been a bit beyond the scope of the pool of funds, but that it's a rolling intake. So they're actually accepting additional applications. So I'll ask Mr. Vera to kind of give some clarity. My understanding is that the application has been rescoped and resubmitted. So there is an application back in front of the federal government. I assure all of you, I will be working very diligently to support the mill market in that ask. You know, we have a commitment from our MP that he will support our effort in that ask. So I don't think the story is completely told on this. I think that there is still an opportunity to get a really reasonable sum of money from the federal government to support this project, and we'll work to make that the case. Mr. Vera, did you want to add anything?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, no, just to confirm that application has been resubmitted to the program. And so we look forward to working with the federal government to see that approved.
Do we know, through you, Mr. Mayor, when a response might be forthcoming? Like, are we looking at weeks, months?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, unfortunately, at this time, we don't know.
We weren't given any indication of that.
Not even an absolute outside date where? No, nothing. Okay.
We weren't.
Well, my preference, obviously, and would be that we wait to hear on funding from that. And I would, you know, after, I guess, everybody's had the opportunity to make their points, I'd move to defer this until we hear about the funding application. If there is a seconder for that.
So you're putting that motion forward now?
I'm content to put it forward after.
Okay.
When everybody's had the opportunity to speak.
Okay, so we'll go through it, then we can come back to that. Is that it for you, Councilor Shoemaker?
I've got comments, but I'll wait.
Councilor Vezoul.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver. Mr. Ver, the $410,000 in leasehold improvements, what does that encompass?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Vezoul. It's a range of the upgrades that'll take place within the facility. We have a rough budget that's scoped out with the consultants now. And we're looking at a number of the items, you know, in the interior shell of the building that would serve the market. So things like the washroom upgrades, things like the flooring, et cetera, that will be required to make it a habitable space for the mill market. Certainly the city owns the building. So when we look at things like the roof and some of the other major repairs, we're looking at as more of a city responsibility, but the market would be contributing to those interior items.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of the resubmission to the Infrastructure Green Fund, how much was that asked for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezawalan, it was the rescoped project that we have now of $2 million. And the GICB program can cover up to 80% of that funding, but we'll have ongoing discussions, hopefully with the federal government, about what that share could be for this rescoped project. The larger budget item that was originally submitted included things like a commercial kitchen and an elevator. So that is left for potentially a future phase of the building, and we've rescoped to this smaller phase to get the mill market into the building.
In terms of the commercial kitchen, did the market board of directors look at leasing the equipment rather than purchasing the equipment, as most restaurateurs do?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezawalan, actually with the addition of the mobile retail units that will be coming online, 2 of those units have a commercial kitchen space. So I think through that process, the market has realized they can hold off on that commercial kitchen until a future phase of expansion is necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Ver. And in terms of looking at other resources, is there a plan through the Mill Market Board of Directors to diversify their asks, such as a capital campaign, rather than just going for through funding applications through private and public sources?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezawalan, certainly, yes, there is that opportunity. To date, they've been focused on the funding applications to different government programs, but that's something we can take to the board, and I'm sure they'd be open to considering that.
Thank you, Mr. Ver.
Councilor Bruni, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Ver. Mr. Ver, if the mill market can't pay the $16,400 a year, what is there a plan if this goes forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. When we work with the Mill Market Board to set up that contribution amount, it was an amount that we felt was attainable by the mill market, given their success to date, as well as the collaboration with the mobile retail units. Should they not be able to meet that commitment, it would be something we would have to bring back to council and discuss next steps from the city's perspective. But we do feel that the amount that we've agreed upon with the market board is something they can achieve. They have been able to save $40,000, which they will contribute to the project to date. They are very diligent with their funds, and I think it's an amount that everyone's comfortable that they can achieve going forward.
Okay. What is the expected proposed rental revenue from the mobile units?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, we've taken, I think, a conservative initial estimate. We're certainly viewing it as a pilot project with these new retail units coming out. So we see the annual revenue being approximately $14,400. And, that will depend on the interest that we get from the mobile retail units. That'll depend on how many months of the year operators are prepared to use them, but we think that's a conservative number that we can achieve.
Now, does the city collect the 14,400, or does the mill market collect it?
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, that's something we're going to work out with the agreement with the market. I think our thinking right now is that the market would collect that. They already work with vendors. They manage the requests from different vendors for space within the market. And so we see that as a positive collaboration with the market to take care of managing the mobile retail units on our behalf.
Okay, thank you. And the question to Ms. Shell regarding the asset management reserve. Michelle, how much money do we have in that reserve right now?
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. At this point in time, we have an uncommitted balance of 2.3 million, and that includes $772,000 that was allocated from the 2021 surplus.
So if you eliminate the 2021 surplus, you're going to get approximately 1.4 million. So really, I mean, this surplus we put in there was very helpful, but if we didn't have that surplus, we would have probably eliminated this reserve, basically, correct?
Yes, you could say that.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My question's through you to Tom. Tom, do you recall when the first time was that the city had proposed demolishing this building?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, I did look into that, and in 2011, council had previously looked into demolishing the building.
So just for the purposes of people that are watching, you refer to it as this building and you said the building. Which building are you two speaking about?
The fish hatchery building.
Fish hatchery building. Yeah, I'm aware of that, but I just want people that are watching to understand what's happening. So the current building that the mill market is in.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is it then safe to say, through you, Mr. Mayor, that this building has been, for better or worse, limped along for already a decade?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, correct. The building was built in 1987. And, as we previously mentioned, it was discussed to be demolished in 2011. The building, fish hatchery building, was never meant to be a permanent home for the mill market. It was when initially approached or proposed to the city, it was meant to be a temporary home before it moved. So it has been limped along. Certainly there are outstanding issues that need to be addressed with the building.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver, does the current market building have any connection to city sewer services?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, no, it does not. The market actually pays for pump out services for their facilities.
Okay, thanks. And as far as we know, on that site, is there any opportunity for expansion of that current building, given some of the environmental conditions there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, certainly there would need to be a significant remediation done to the building if we were to look at expanding it, and a fair amount of work done to looking at what's there now and looking at how that will be accomplished.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nero next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Ver. Mr. Ver, further to the last answer you gave to Councillor Dufour's question, would there be any impact in relative to costs to this facility, the existing facility, if we were to delay the new facility? I know that your report says that we would require significant capital investment, but is there anything in the short term that we would have to do to that building?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. Nero, sorry. My apologies.
No problem.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero. I think it's fair to say that staff was looking at, with the acquisition of the Brock Street building, that the market would be moving. And previously, obviously, we had the opportunity with the Boarding Urban Indigenous Committee for Development there. So we haven't been spending a lot of time looking at the facility and anticipating that move. So we would need to do some asset management work to look at that facility if we were planning to stay in there in order to determine what repairs and renovations would need to be done.
Okay. I was looking, I understand the answer, and I know that what you need to do to get the answer to that question. I was looking more for information to the possible motion that would be upcoming to defer this, and just to have some information to help decide if a deferral is detrimental to this project.
That's a separate question. I think if you're asking, and it's a good question, and it's something that's should be asked. I think if you're asking, is there any money you need to spend in the next couple months? I mean, the thing's still standing, so the answer to that probably is no.
Well, that's what I asked.
Yeah, but if the question is there a problem with the deferral? Because that's a question I actually asked earlier today, because I was kind of thinking the same thing as Councilor Shoemaker was. Maybe it'd be a matter to defer, but the deferral creates a timing issue and staff's ability to actually get this thing out to tender and get it back from tender with the price. So it does create an issue, but they can speak to that specifically. Mr. Ver?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero. Certainly the hope and the goal would be we'd be able to continue with the process that we started with MGP and be able to tender that project. such that the renovations could be completed and the market building would be able to open in approximate timing for the plaza to open. Obviously, there's a lot of synergies between those two projects and a benefit to getting all the construction completed while one is underway and the other one would be underway at the same time. As discussed earlier, there's nothing immediate that I'm aware of that needs to happen in the fish hatchery building. With that said, it's more a matter of trying to line up the two projects such that we can bring them together and have them open in a approximately same timeframe.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Wait, Councillor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Dufour was reading my mind and asked a number of my questions. So I just have one more. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver, would you be able to kind of give us a sense how many people visit the mill market on a weekly basis? Would you say in the several hundred would be a conservative number or right about there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardy, that would be a very conservative number. On a Saturday, they can get up to 3,000 visitors.
Can you say that again?
3,000 visitors.
3,000 visitors. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
My regrets to Councillor Dufour, because if he's able to read your mind, that would probably that would probably be a very frightening thing. That would be probably a very frightening thing. I don't have anybody left on my list here. Do I have anybody else that wants to speak to this or has any questions? Councillor Vezawalan. Did I already have you, Councillor Vezawalan?
You did. I just have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, and then we'll circle back to Councillor Shoemaker's suggestion.
So just in terms of deferral, based on the funding application, currently most federal applications are taking upwards to 6 months to a year, depending on the ministry. I met with some folks from Heritage and the program that's happening right now at the Old Stone House, it took them a year to find out about it. So whereas, working with our federal representatives can be helpful, there is a process and it can be quite lengthy. So I don't support deferral, the fact that the application's in and hopefully it was vetted again and well. I support moving forward because I think if we defer this any longer, then as Mr. Ver said, it really affects the synergies of both of the projects coming to fruition in a timely fashion. So I'm supportive of where we're at right now, especially because we do have the dollars available. And I think having 3,000 people on a Saturday in downtown is going to be pretty fantastic.
So Councillor Shoemaker, had I known she was going to speak to your motion before you tabled it, I would have made her wait till after you tabled it. So why don't did you want to speak to this matter or the deferral? Because if you want to speak to the deferral, then I'm going to go to Councillor Shoemaker first. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the lateness on this. I just thought of a question in regards to the 3,000 people. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Mr. Ver, how many parking spaces do we have downtown and how many were we adding to this? Sorry, I couldn't remember how many we were adding to the final plaza project.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, the plaza itself will have approximately 29 spaces. But when we've looked at the parking in and around the plaza area, we find there's more than enough parking with the North City parking lot, with the on-street parking on Queen and Brock, with the lots in behind Queen. We've got a lot of parking in that area, so we're comfortable that there'll be lots of parking for people to attend the market.
Okay, that was kind of what I was thinking because I'm just saying 3,000 is a lot more than I was expecting as well. Do you happen to know what the peak number? I know 3,000 on a Saturday, but do we happen to know if they have an idea what like peak would be at one time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, I don't think I would be able to give you an answer to that question. I'm looking at my colleague Brent Lemming to see if he would know.
Brent, your mic's not on yet. So this is the peak number of people there at any given time.
Yeah, like if they had 3,000 a day, would we say there's like 100 cars at one time would be the highest or?
Do you understand the question, Mr. Lemming?
Yes, I do.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott. Yes, on a peak Saturday, about 4,000 people would be there on any given Saturday. Even through COVID, the lowest number was 700 and we're at capacity at 40 vendors right now. So,
but I think the question isn't how many people over the course of the day. The question is, do you know a peak of how many people are there? What's the highest number of people there at the same time is what he's asking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
at any one time, 4,000 is over the day. You're looking at probably in the neighborhood of about 500 people at one time. Yes.
Okay, so then we believe we have, I know not everyone's going to drive and people carpool, but we believe we have enough parking in the area to accommodate 500.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, did you want to move a deferral? Okay. And any specific time you want to return this to council?
Well, I'd move the deferral to return this subsequent to any decision on funding from the federal government.
Okay, that's clear. Let me get a seconder for that, then I'll go to you, Councillor Nero. You're seconding that, Councillor Bruni? Councillor Nero, did you have a question or comment on this?
Comment.
Go ahead.
Time for that.
Yeah, no, we're on the deferral motion. Okay, so this, we'll vote on the deferral motion, then we'll move back to the main motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly get where Councillor Shoemaker wants to go with this and why. I just don't see at the end of it all what we're going to gain, because we're still going to apply for the funding. And if that funding fails, we're in the same spot we are today. So as far as I'm concerned, we should just move the project forward, apply for the funding, and see what happens. I mean, if we get the funding, great. It just replaces what we're approving today. Those are my comments.
I'm sorry, I should have started with Councillor.
Kind of prefaced my.
Oh, you don't have anything further?
Nothing.
Councillor Bruni, do you have any further?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll be short. I agree with Councillor Shoemaker regarding the deferral. I hate to see our taxpayers' money going specifically for this project before we apply for some type of government funding. So I think it's important that we apply for the funding first, and let's see where that goes. If we're acceptable, I don't know why we were refused from the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. But I'm sorry, the application was the Infrastructure Canada Green and Inclusive Community Building Program. So I don't know why we were refused that money, but I would like to see us apply any other type of funding and not go into our asset management reserve. As Ms. Shell mentioned, 772,000 came from the 2021 surplus. So I would hate to use that money just specifically for this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nero. I have Councillor Dufour, then Councillor Hollingsworth, then Councillor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As I think was clear in my questions. I think that city staff has done an admirable job in keeping that building going for as long as it has. I think taking a building, and I've worked in the construction industry for 10 years past its expected lifespan, speaks to the care that they gave it, but it also very much speaks to the need for a new and proper building. I do not support the deferral. I think that the level of funding, while it is relevant and important, it doesn't necessarily speak to the strategic value and the importance of this project, not just to the downtown, but also to any future development of the Gateway site. Clearly, this council has really moved that project forward in a number of significant ways with the relocation of the rail line, the addition of the frontage on Bay Street. I think this really completes kind of the package for that Gateway site to really be development ready, with no longer having a tenant there all the time. So I think there's a lot of really good reasons why we would continue to move this forward while we wait for the funding. And so that's why I'll be voting against the deferral. Thanks.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I have faith in staff to basically secure future funding. They have shown us since we've been on this council that they work very hard at their grant applications. And I have faith in our mayor and other leaders in this community to represent Sault Ste. Marie at the higher tables at the federal level. Granted, we can't assume that we're going to be successful in receiving this fund, but I do have faith. Having said that, I also want to say that this particular existing market, I've had the privilege to be part of the infancy. I remember when we first built the mill market, working with two other individuals to get it going. And honestly, I am not an engineer. I am not a building expert, but I know that back then there were issues. And I know that there's issues that are still growing when you walk through. We also know that the washroom facilities are not really most appropriate, as one example. With the new building, we're going to have better washroom facilities. We're going to have better facilities to educate on the importance of eating healthy. Having said that, we also know that we don't have a proper grocery store right in the downtown area. On Gore Street, we do have a wonderful grocery for good, but we don't have a proper grocery store. We know that there's going to be more density happening downtown, meaning there's going to be more apartments, there's going to be better housing and so forth. And people are going to be walking more. They're not going to rely on cars as much. So wouldn't it be nice that people can walk to a central area, pick up fresh vegetables, fresh food easier? So I support the idea of we continue to pursue the idea of building a brand new building. And having said that, one last other point is it's a temporary building, what we have now. I do worry that we continue to put money into a building that we may not be using in a year or 2 years, throwing good money away. Isn't it time to start putting good money into a solid future? Having said that, I do have faith that we are going to receive a grant money. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardy.
This
is on the deferral, Councillor Gardy.
Well, I'll let you navigate me through my comments. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So it's my opinion that the current building isn't satisfactory. It's not commensurate with how many people are going and how many people enjoy it and the opportunity that it provides for local growers and producers. It goes hand in glove with what we're trying to do to revitalize downtown, especially with the public square that we're looking to create. If all the councilors take a look at Municipal World issue, June 2022, that all of you have on your desk right now, it speaks specifically to revitalizing communities across Canada. And the cover article is revitalizing communities across Canada, town square developments on page 5. And it speaks to what communities, and not metropolises, cities are doing across the country. It cites Aurora, Ontario, Medicine Hat, Alberta, Esquimalt, British Columbia, and Innisfil, Ontario. Aurora has a population of 62,000 people. It's investing $50 million, $50 million in their town square. Innisfil has a population of 40,000 people. It's investing $11 million in its public square. Esquimalt has a population of $17,000. With a common thread in all of these, if you look at the article, is that they're all facing challenges, but what all of the communities have chosen to do is to drive forward. Now, I don't know why we would delay something that has been such a hit in our community. Between 3,000 and 4,000 people going there during the week, 500 people at any given time. Outside of a Greyhound game, you don't see that critical mass of people anywhere. If we're going to bring that amount of people downtown, we need to get this done sooner rather than later. All of us know that there's uncertainty moving forward. I think deferring is a mistake. I would ask everybody to proceed. And I'm hopeful that we will be voting down Councillor Shoemaker's deferral. Thanks.
So I'll just offer one comment on deferral. Councillor Shoemaker, I thought a lot about this today because it was kind of one of the approaches that I was considering kind of in the context of what council might want to do. But the reality is it comes down to this for me. If you want to see the project move ahead and you're willing to support the project, council staff needs to get that signal from us. And frankly, from my perspective, I'm willing to proceed with the project without the money. I think it's a critical project for our downtown. I think it's a critical project to make the town square attractive and work. And we've been working on this project for our entire term. I'm not going to repeat everything I said at the last council meeting about the importance of aspiring to something and having some ambition and investing in our community. So in the end, although I'm going to really try and get additional resources, and although I'm going to try and get them in the near term, I'm willing to spend our municipal dollars doing this. So I don't want to put the project off. I want to see the project move forward. So for that purpose, I won't support the deferral, and I want to hopefully get significant support from council so staff could continue to work with the architect and get this moving as of tomorrow. So anybody else on the deferral? So in favor of the deferral? So we have Councillor Scott, Shoemaker, and Bruni opposed to the deferral. There's the remaining 8 of us. So that would be Christian, Nero, Dufour, Hilsinger, Basil Allen, Gardy, Hollingsworth, and myself. So that brings us back to the main motion. A number of us made comments in the deferral that would probably be consistent with the main motion. So I'm not going to come back to the people that spoke to it on the deferral. Anybody want to speak to the main motion? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate that. It looked like the deferral was going to go that way. The project itself, we're being asked tonight to add another 1.4 million. When the project itself, the plaza proposal came to us in, I think it was August 19. The amount that the city was being asked to put in was 2.2 million. When we approved the construction of the plaza a couple meetings ago, the amount that the city was putting in was something like 7.9 million of an $8.9 million project, or my rough numbers. And now we're being asked to add another 1.5 million to the kind of global project. So the plaza and surrounds are now pushing 11 million. The city's contribution is about 9 million. And I guess, where does it end? How much money is this council willing to put into this project? And I heard that the 1.5, Mr. Mayor, is something that you're willing to proceed without funding. You know, if the city has to put it in on their own, it will. Seems obviously the rest of council agrees with that as well. I mean, there's another motion we could move here, which is, why don't we just eliminate a cost limit on this project altogether? Because it seems to me that council is willing to spend any amount of money on this project that is going to come forward. So we're at 11 million. Why not 20? Why not 30? Why not do like Aurora and spend 60 million? Okay. Well, we need either other sources of government funding or to put a cap on this project. And there is no cap, and it's a vanishing amount because whether we're spending 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, it seems that there is no amount too much for this council to approve. So, I mean, it just goes to show a willingness to proceed with this project in the face of denials from upper levels of government, a lack of public support, in my opinion. And I have long ago stopped supporting the project, and I just think that it's absurd that we continue to increase the spending limit on this so drastically.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Maker. Councilor Gardy.
Thanks. So I don't know what people who are voting against this envisage for the mill market. So the building, I would think, is probably not going to last a heck of a lot longer. We don't have proper facilities. There are 3,000 or 4,000 people going there a week. I would, like you mentioned, Councilor Shoemaker mentioned that there isn't public support for the project. I assume he's talking about the project at large. But I'm going to choose my words carefully. If I were aspiring to appeal to the community at large, I think I would be supportive of funding someplace that so many people from so many different demographics and parts of our community enjoy. No one here has said that, you know, we're going to spend $20 million. staff has brought forward a pretty definitive amount, again, that we'll vote on shortly. But we had our say initially last time, and I don't know how we proceed with this project without having an element of it that's so instrumental to its success. So I don't see the reasoning on it. I don't like the fact that, you know, Councilor Shoemaker, and I know it's more rhetoric than anything, that you're insinuating that anybody, including myself, has like, will vote on any number. That's just not the case. So that's where I'm at on this. And I'm hopeful, like I said, that we're going to get support to move this forward, because the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. And if anybody thinks it's going to get any cheaper or less expensive by deferring it and the like, well, that's just, they should know that's just not the case, because it's not going to happen.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Hilsinger.
Thank you. Just quickly, this is a game changer for this community, not just the downtown. This is a complete game changer for this community. And for all the reasons that all of us who were in support of moving this project ahead, and for all of the reasons that the staff talked about how we can manage it, and for some of the reasons that I mentioned when we had this conversation the last time, which are other communities like Thunder Bay, who had 400 jobs created because they undertook significant investment, because they had significant increase in tax assessment, which brings other money back into our community to help us with our services. And so much more. So we need to proceed. We need to be brave, and we need to follow the plan, and it's going to work out, and it's going to be great. And we are going to be so happy that we took that step, that we had the courage to invest in this community, to invest in the downtown. And it's a game changer. Thanks.
Any other comments, council? Councilor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I said this last time about the plaza. I think that, you know, it was really interesting following the community conversation after your words and our vote last time, because a lot of the people that I was talking to, a lot of the people, especially who are younger, who have made Sault Ste. Marie their home for decades to come, a lot of people appreciate the fact that this council has the vision and the boldness to actually invest in our downtown. I don't think that a council can rightly expect businesses and entrepreneurs and citizens to invest in a place that they refuse to invest in. I think by moving this mill market, I think that, you know, we clearly have three really major significant spots on our waterfront to really start to attract the kind of big investment that this city has always been starving for. And I think that if you want to attract that kind of investment, you have to be the kind of council and the kind of body that is willing to put that smart capital forward first. To constantly defer, to constantly wait on everyone else to come and do your heavy lifting for you. Like, to me, it's akin to investing for your retirement by hiding some cash under the mattress. You need to be smart, you need to take risks, and you need to have vision. I think that's what this council is doing. Thanks.
Councilor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not that I don't oppose the plaza or the mill market. What I do oppose is the added costs, the increased costs. And I respect every councillor here, but I was listening to Councillor Gardy, and he mentioned regarding all the investment those other municipalities were putting into their downtown, which is great. But nobody knows how much money was provided by the government. And all I'm saying is, with this deferral is, and the mayor has stated that he would work very hard as our lead to see if there's other type of funding available to move this project forward. We're just throwing the 1.4 million in there, and then we don't know if we're going to get that money back. Half of it, some of it, or none of it. So it's not that, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not opposed about the mill market. I think it's a great place, but I think we have to be careful that how much money are we putting into this project with the increase in costs. And if the government can provide us some type of relief, I say that's great. But to put all the money in and then after go and apply for funding, you might not get that funding. And that's my comments. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions, Council? Councilor Vezoul. I feel like I've let you speak to this a couple of times with Councilor Vezoul.
Just very brief,
Well,
very brief.
yeah, okay.
I just want to, I echo Councillor Gardy and Councillor Hilsinger's comments. I also want to make a point that the existing infrastructure, especially with my time on the Accessibility Committee and Mr. McConnell has been very instrumental in that committee. A lot of our folks with mobility devices are not able to attend. There's nowhere for them to go to the washroom. There's nowhere for young families to change their young children and things like that. So we really need to take a look at how we're providing accessible spaces for our folks that have to rely on devices for mobility. And that just is not the case at the current facility. So I'm really excited that with the new facility that so many more people can access it and have full capabilities. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna respond to 3 of Councilor Shoemaker's comments, and then we can call the vote on it. Councilor Shoemaker, and I understand why, you've had a habit of lumping all of the dollars into municipal dollars. And I recognize that the federal government gave us funds that we could use for things that are non-public square projects. But some of the 9 million you're referencing is federal funds that we received from the federal government. So the specific municipal contribution, I would suggest, is inconsistent with how you represented it. I think that it's important to recognize you made a comment about a lack of public support. And I don't take any issue with that being your gauge. That's not my gauge. I've had a number of business leaders reach out to me and tell me they hoped the plaza moved forward. We heard that actually in one of the chamber events where a business leader had indicated that there was a communication issue because they didn't think we were doing a good enough job on selling the value of it. Thought it was a good project. And I've had residents say the same thing to me. I was at Drake Park where my family lives and a young family was there and the mother walked up to me and said, I really hope it works because it would be a lovely place to bring the kids on a Saturday. Now, that's my gauge of it. But in any event, whether there is public support for something or isn't public support for something, it's up to us, the 11 of us, to decide whether to move forward with it, independent of that. And in a representative democracy, we have to make that decision. And we have to make the decision based on information given to us and based on a plan we're moving forward with. And I think that this decision is consistent with the plan that we've been trying to move forward with. 2 final comments. I don't think there's any basis to say that we would spend any amount of money on that. I think you know me well enough that I too have my limits, and I made that very clear with the Twin Pack. I wasn't going to go over what we had ultimately decided to do there. Notwithstanding that, we added what I think is the same amount of money to build a walking track. So, we added over 1 million, might have been 1.4 even, I don't recall, but it was close to what we're adding here to build a walking track. So this, in the context of other things that we're doing, I think is a reasonable investment. And I think it really, to me, the mill market is critical to the whole plaza project. So there is a limit. And I would suggest to you that there's no basis for saying that any of us would spend any amount of money to make this happen. I think it's a good project. I think the community will appreciate it and enjoy it when it's done. And I think it complements the rest of the work we're doing. So I'm supportive of moving it forward. And if we are able to garner more resources in the meantime, it will diminish the burden to us and we'll have resources to put elsewhere. But I think the fact that we have access to these resources is evidence that we are managing things pretty prudently here and that we need to, as my colleagues point out, make investments in ourselves and our own community if we want other parties to make investments in our community. So, council, that should be the end of it. The vote, do you have the vote up?
It is up.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Just cast your vote on each scribe. The motion carries 8-3.
Counselor Bruni and Counselor Gardy.
Counselor Bruni is opposed. Counselor Guardian voted in favor.
There we go. And okay, I'm going to close the vote. All right, that'll bring us to 9.1. And under agenda item 9.1, charging infrastructure, of a motion by Councilors Gardy and Bezo Allen. Whereas the climate crisis has forced countries, regions, and municipalities around the world to reevaluate and implement certain measures to help mitigate the existential and catastrophic impacts that will be caused by the changing climate. And whereas one of the most recognized ways for society to battle the climate crisis is to transition away from fossil fuels to eliminate as best as possible the emission of greenhouse gases. And whereas, according to Natural Resources Canada, transportation accounts for 25% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, and almost half of that comes from light-duty trucks and cars. And whereas Canada has set a mandatory target for all passenger cars and light-duty trucks to be zero emission by 2035, and whereas communities in Canada should be deliberately planning for the transition to predominantly electric passenger vehicles over the next decade. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council requests that staff develop a charging infrastructure plan to be presented to Council for consideration that will advance local policies to accelerate charging infrastructure in the community and to include possible changes to local building codes to ensure electric vehicle readiness inclusion in future commercial, industrial, and residential development within the municipality of Sault Ste. Marie.
Okay, Councilor Gardy.
Yeah, there isn't much to say beyond what I've included in the motion with Councilor Bezo Allen's assistance. I just think that municipalities need to do what they have to in order to prepare for, battling the climate crisis. We've done some progressive stuff over the course of this term of council. I'm hoping to get to the support of council to take a further step in the right direction. Municipalities have to play their part. We can't count on simply the feds and the province. Oftentimes, we're a little more proactive than they are, at least in a timely fashion. And I think I just think it's something we need to do. And I'm asking staff to do this for us. And I hope to get a majority of council's support. Thanks.
Councilor Bezo Allen, did you want to speak to it?
Only to add and echo Councilor Gardy's, we need to be proactive, not reactive. The only charging stations I've noticed in any sort of public space are at the water tower parking lot. So I think we really need to take a look at where we can promote private, public sector and city facility charging stations, especially as manufacturers are moving towards electric vehicles as well. It just makes sense and it's important for the environment. So thank you.
Any other comment, Councilor Christian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If memory serves me correctly, when we were on the PUC board, wasn't part of their long-term strategy to look at increasing the number of sites in the city? And if so, is there an opportunity or?
Yeah, I think it's implicit in the resolution. I was going to talk to the councilors about explicitly mentioning the PUC, but then I thought we didn't really have to. City staff, we own the utility. City staff is going to reach out to the PUC. Any work they do on this, they'll do in conjunction with the PUC.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We will not be sourcing any other distribution company in these discussions. I assure you. Anybody else? All in favor? Motion carries.
I'm just closing the vote. That'll bring us to agenda item 9.2, Association of Municipalities of Ontario. I have a motion by Councilors Nero and Bezo Allen. Whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is a critical voice for municipalities to communicate and collaborate with the provincial government on policy matters. And whereas Councillor Dufour has invested significant effort on better policy addressing housing affordability, building quality, and innovative service models which have depended on provincial cooperation, now therefore be it resolved that the Sault Ste. Marie City Council support Councillor Dufour's bid for election to the large urban caucus of AMO's Board of Directors at the 2022 AMO Annual General Meeting.
The mover, who was the mover of this one?
Councillor Nero.
Councillor Nero, did you want to speak to it? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council would be aware that Councilor Dufour is very active in local housing initiatives, both as a member of this council and also as chair of DSAP. Council will also recall that recently Councilor Dufour tabled 3 motions directly specifically to the issue of housing affordability, housing supply, and Indigenous specific housing. Council will also recall that Councilor Dufour initiated and brought forward a first of its kind program in Ontario. And that was the one that would see families move from subsidized housing to home ownership. And he accomplished this by by the pilot program, purchasing and renovating houses that have been neglected and are the cause of lower property assessment. It's for these reasons that I believe Councilor Dufour would be a huge asset as a member of AMO Board of Directors, Large Urban Caucus. And I would hope that we would unanimously support his request to this board.
Thank you, Councillor Nero. Councillor Venezuela, did you want to add anything as a seconder?
I'm just going to further add that Councillor Dufour communicates very well and has been a great relationship builder with our provincial ministries, especially the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. This wouldn't happen without developing those relationships. And I think he would be a huge asset on the AMO board, and having representation from Sault Ste. Marie, I think would be a really great thing. So I support this 100%.
I agree with all of what was said by Councillor Nero and Councillor Venezuela, so I'm happy to support a vote in favor of this. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously.
Closing the vote, that'll bring us to agenda item 9.3, Laneway Maintenance. I have a motion by Councillors Dufour and Bezo Allen, whereas city-owned and maintained laneways provide important access for properties immediately abutting them for both owners and emergency vehicles. And whereas litter, discarded drug paraphernalia, and a lack of lighting are common neighborhood concerns regarding many laneways. And whereas Public Works does its best to respond to complaints in a reactive manner. And whereas the city of Sault Ste. Marie has a downtown security pilot program with security vehicles patrolling some downtown laneways. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to work with relevant partners to develop a proactive system to ensure that laneways are clean, maintained, and well lit, not just in downtown, but across all neighborhoods, including the James Street neighborhood of the city.
Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This motion came from over the years, having dealt with a number of constituent laneway concerns kind of on an ad hoc basis with the implementation of the downtown security pilot, some other ongoing investments that are being made by other departments in the city. I thought that this might be an opportune time to give staff the direction to look at perhaps developing a more proactive approach to our laneways. They are important for downtown quality of life, and there may be some innovative ways that we can address some of these concerns so that they're not just done on a piecemeal basis.
Councillor Venezuela.
I also just want to add that part of the motion speaks to community partners. So we've seen a lot of great initiatives through the NRC. We used to do cleanup in Gore Street with a number of volunteers, which sort of got stalled with COVID, and we're seeing a lot of great things with the folks from Jamestown Strong. So this really just helps staff to coordinate other initiatives. And I just want to put a shout out to Public Works. Both Susan and Larry have been really amazing when, both Luke or myself have put in calls for laneways to be cleaned up, especially sort of in that Alexandra area, some of the Gore Street area. They've been really proactive and get there as quickly as possible. So I want to say, they are doing good work, but also we're seeing a lot of initiatives through community members. And I think there's a great synergy that could happen, especially through the Downtown Ambassador program as well. So thank you very much.
So Councillor Dufour, I think in spirit, I like the idea of making sure that we take proper care of our laneways, and we should as best as we can. My concern with passing this way is that we're not asking for a report back. So we have no idea what this is going to cost. And we don't currently maintain all of our laneways because we have a lot of laneways. And I personally believe, and I'm not, staff will have to answer this, but I believe that this will result in a levy increase. So, usually when we're looking at something that results in a levy increase, we ask for a report back and refer to budget. So passing this as it is giving that direction to staff. They're gonna have to put that program together. And then, when you guys get to budget, you're gonna have this significant increase. I think it'll be relatively significant to clean up laneways. So if you wanted to adjust it, I would support that. If you want to leave it the way it is, I'm gonna vote against it.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's an oversight on my part. I fully expected that different levels of service would come with the corresponding different level of resources needed. And I expected that to form a report that this council could then make a judgment on. So
Okay.
that's my oversight.
Yeah, so the way you structure it is simply to put the program together.
Yes, and
Which-
I'd be happy to move to amend the motion.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna deal with this first. So you're friendly to the motion being amended to ask staff to return a
Report back on what such programs would look like in different levels of service with their corresponding levels of resource allocation.
Is that comfortable to you as a seconder? Can I leave that to you to pen there, Mr. CEO, while we take the rest of the questions on this? Councilor Bruni?
Yeah, I just want to ask Councillor Dufour regarding the, who would these partners be, relevant partners that you have in the report?
Yeah, so aside from Public Works, you'd have Norpro that's doing the downtown security vehicles. You'd have PUC that oversees all of our street lighting, which also includes laneway lighting. And they again, none of this is a criticism of the partners. It just seems like there might be an opportunity to work more closely together. As Councillor Vezo Allen indicated, we have CMHA's peer support program, and downtown ambassador program. And I tried to leave it general as well, because I'm sure there's some out there that I'm maybe slipping my mind right now.
So this is for all laneways in the city?
The way it's written, yes.
Okay, so just to give a bit of history here, right now our laneway budget is $28,000.
I believe this would be a significant levy increase.
I believe it would be, and then especially the last 6 months, council has asked for the cleaning of the windrows at the end of the driveways and increased sidewalk maintenance. I love the idea about laneways getting cleaned, and because we do get calls on that, on laneways on a regular basis through the city with high grass, etc. But it's going to be a significant increase, but I'll wait for the report. Thanks.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. It's a comment. I can't exactly recall the exact year, but I believe Councillor Myers was also on council, and we did put this resolution or something very similar to the table, and staff did come back with a report. So all I'm suggesting is, don't get me wrong, I'm supporting this, and I know that you have looked at it with fresh eyes and you looked at it from a different mandate and different need. However, not to reinvent the wheel, I encourage staff to go back in time and see if they can find that report and see if they can find that resolution. I do recall that we debated it and that it was unfortunately a lot of costs, because we had constituents calling saying the grass is so long, can you cut it? And so forth, so forth. Now, granted, we have a new council, we're in a new society, we're in a new year, and we have new challenges. However, I just want to caution that we might be going down this road before or laneway before. That's all. Thank you.
We're not that new anymore either, Councillor Hollingsworth. Yeah. Councillor Vernon, Councillor Nero, sorry. I got called Carm twice tonight, so you know.
Yeah, but this is more than twice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too I'm going to support this motion. I have no problem with it. I'm glad it came forward. But I also recall on a previous council that I specifically brought this up. And we were dealing with problem areas, laneways in the West End specifically. I don't remember if Mr. Girardi remembers specifically addressing this, but I think, you know, the answer at that time was that we do this maintenance. It didn't have to do much with long grass and overgrown trees. It was more with debris left in laneways, things like mattresses, couches, and things like that. And Public Works at that time had committed to, and maybe that's where the 28,000 budget is, that Public Works would maintain all laneways throughout the city to that degree. I don't know if Mr. Girardi wants to speak to that or not, but.
Go ahead, Mr. Girardi.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Nero, that was a situation that was in a non-maintained laneway that people were dumping their garbage in. So how that began was we sent letters out to have them clean their own garbage up first. And there were some areas where people had dumped garbage and the people had moved away and we had to go in and clean it. But yes, that's how it was initiated. It was a non-maintained laneway at that time where people would just go in their backyard and dump all their garbage there. So. And that's a similar situation that we're finding in some of these parts of town. And that's why we have the 28,000. That's to send the crews in there to clean that up.
So just to confirm, Mr. Mayor, to the mover and second, is that what we're talking about in this motion? Is that kind of clean up the laneways?
I'd say the way I read the motion, would be more significant than that. It's not just going in and pulling the debris out. It's making sure they're all neat and clean and well lit. And I think you take a more consistent maintenance program, I think, to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's also with the mind that we currently now have more eyes on those laneways. You know, we have resources that are in the community that didn't exist 8 years ago. And is there an opportunity for those resources to be used more collaboratively and more in concert with the existing resources at Public Works to get more bang for our buck?
Okay, so the motion has been, it's been adjusted by the mover and seconder to ask for a report back. I think that the CEO understands what's being asked. Did you adjust the motion, Mr. CEO?
I would change the operative clause to be now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to report on how a proactive system could be developed with relevant partners to ensure the laneways are clean, maintained, and well lit, not just in downtown, but across all neighborhoods, including the James Street neighborhood of the city.
Okay, throw back to when he was the clerk. Did we all understand clearly what the CAO was saying? Are we in a position to vote on that? All in favor? Motion is carried.
All right, that brings us to 9.4, Pine Street Sidewalk Extension. I have a motion by Councilors Vezo Allen and Dufour, whereas the City of Sault Ste. Marie's long-term strategic planning includes the incorporation of active transportation, and whereas the definition of active transportation encompasses all forms of human-powered travel, including walking, cycling, rollerblading, skiing, and canoeing. And whereas the city prioritizes the development of safe and enjoyable active transportation routes to encourage healthy lifestyles, decrease automobile dependency, and increase recreational tourism opportunities. And whereas multiple residents and visitors use the John Rosewell Hub Trail to access our many amenities, including both Bellevue Park and the adjacent marina. And whereas the trail system and a marina are easily accessed via Pine Street. And whereas the sidewalk on Pine Street does not extend to the marina entrance. And whereas many pedestrians use the lower Pine Street route without the safety of a sidewalk. Now therefore be it resolved that appropriate staff be requested to report on the feasibility and cost of extension of this sidewalk to better support active transportation in our community.
So this is moved by Councilor Vezo Allen. So we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's pretty straightforward. There is no sidewalk on Pine Street that extends, goes to just one of the middle apartment buildings. And there are a lot of young families, seniors that are using that. So as the motion states, it's just looking for potential feasibility and costs of extending that sidewalk for improved safety for our residents.
Do we have anything further to add to that? Okay. Okay, all in favor? I think you'll probably have a number of different motions for the bylaws, correct, Madam Clerk?
Let me just close this one here. Unanimous vote there. And yeah, on to bylaws. We actually passed the exception earlier in the meeting, so I'll just do the consent motion.
Maybe we can congratulate the new deputy fire chief, Mr. Oliverio. So he's watching tonight, which I highly doubt he is. You can tell him tomorrow, chief, that we wish him congratulations, best of luck in his new role.
Great, so under agenda item 12, consideration and passing of bylaws, a motion by councillors Christian and Scott, resolve that all bylaws under item 11 of the agenda under date June 13th, 2022 be approved, save and accept bylaw 2022-124.
All in favor? Carried.
Bring us to our closed motion. Under agenda item 14, a motion by councillors Christian and Gardy, resolve that this council move into closed session to discuss one item regarding a trade secret supplied in confidence to the municipality. Further be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, that council may reconvene in closed session to discuss the same matters without the need for a further authorizing resolution. Okay. And under agenda item 15, adjournment, a motion by councillors Christian and Gardy resolve that this council now adjourn.